Welcome everybody to our 1600 session. This one is Utilities in Action, How AI and Autonomy Are Transforming Grid Instructions and Resilience. We'll get underway here. I'll pass it to our esteemed panel to bring us home to the day.
Awesome, thank you. I'm excited to be here. First off, I know we're sitting in between you and the beer and the 𝗧𝗿𝗂𝗏, so thanks for bearing with us. Hopefully we'll keep it entertaining and interesting. I'm Kaitlyn Albertoli, co-founder and CEO here at 𝗏𝗏 Solutions. At 𝗏𝗏 Solutions, we are a visual AI platform analyzing utility inspection data. We have the fortune of working with some amazing groups here, and really excited for this session. So I'm going to go ahead and maybe pass down the line if you all would like to introduce yourselves and say a couple sentences about your program and how you're thinking about AI autonomy in your inspection programs. Peter, I'll start with you.
Peter Kalaitzidis, New York Power Authority. We are transmission and generation based. AI is going to be a tool for the everyday employee, for my alignment to our planners. That's what I'm looking for.
Butler, Dominion Energy. We have all verticals in the power delivery system, which from power plants, transmission, distribution, offshore wind, solar, renewables, pretty much the whole gamut of the utility industry. And looking at AI for us is trying to do things, to plan a smarter way, one quicker, faster, and more intelligent than we ever have done before in the past. So we're seeing some really big strides working with Buzz and being able to bring a lot of those things that we had at our site where we weren't able to look out and see them, and now we're able to take that information and really adjust it and understand it and plan for the future.
All right, my name is Patrick Rackley. I'm with AEP, American Electric Power. I work primarily for AEP Texas, but I oversee the UAS operations for AEP, which covers the generation, transmission, distribution, all the way through security, renewables. And we're still early on our journey, but from the AI perspective, we understand the power, the impact of removing humans from the mix and leaning on the tech so that we can focus on what really matters. And to do that, we need to really understand that and decompress that time. So we're grateful to be here and be part of this this program and this evolution in the utility space, at least for AEP.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that overview. Maybe to kick us off, we're in 2026. Everyone's thinking about AI autonomy in a different way. Everyone here too is on a different journey of how they're implementing autonomous programs. And we're here to talk about resilience. Can you maybe start off by defining how do you think about the way that autonomy and AI plays into your grid resilience program? Maybe Asher, we'll start with you.
So for us, it's really about understanding the current state of our assets in near real time. So historically, our inspection programs, I'll just use inspection programs, they were on a 5-year cycle. So it would take us over 5 years to find out that we had a problem unless something failed. And that's not really a great way of doing business. So what we're shifting to is an inspection program where we're actually inspecting our assets year over year. And then first and foremost, I have the artifact that I actually looked at that asset. Historically, we didn't even document if there wasn't a problem. And the part of that effort is knowing exactly where to set our priority. So the resiliency side is really focusing on what priority is, monitoring, other degradation factors that are happening to our system. And when we have weather events, put in perspective, AEP Texas covers 100,000 square miles. So anything Mother Nature can throw at me, we have to deal with. So how do I shift as the environmental changes, and how do I shift the priority, and how do I know what the potential impact is going to be if I don't even understand what the current state of my system is? So to us, it's really increasing our situational awareness. It's focusing on things that matter, and without data, full disclosure, we're applied by the seat of our pants. So it's really about putting structure into the programs and knowing what to expect, when to expect, and how to take action.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that? How do you think about, working across so many different asset types? I know that's something we've talked about. How do you think about where you're prioritizing those efforts? I mean, I know we could talk about limited resources and those types of things, but how are you thinking about where you're sending, your crews, where you're inspecting? How are you prioritizing that as you're looking to year-over-year inspections?
So we're actually trying to put in a fleet that doesn't require me to pick and choose how. It's about being able to cover at speed and get as much information as back as fast. And we're still trying to figure out that proper cadence and all of that as well. But with that approach strategy, you have to consider retention. When do I collect? How much do I collect? So right now, our priority is in the wildfire area because that's where we have the greatest risk at this exact moment. But we're trying to figure out strategically how to risk freaking, how to understand, how do we use performance-based, outages to shift. Full disclosure, I don't have an exact secret sauce there, but we are evolving and learning, and we're talking to specialists like these here. I'll say, what are they doing, right? Or how do they find success? Sharing is caring, remember? And they've been in it a lot longer than I have. So I took what I'll call a failed program approach, and in the last year have made the course correct. And without team members like this, sharing with me, I would be slower to learn and evolve. So thank y'all formally for everything and taking my phone calls and helping mentoring me.
Awesome. Thanks so much. TF, how about you?
You take American Express or cash?
I could give you a cup.
I think when we look back at the resiliency part of it, right? We look at what was going on in this industry, let's call it 5 years ago, where we weren't doing BV loss operations. We weren't doing long flight operations, right? We were like breaking ground at getting images of things that we never perhaps had seen for years, right? Then we ended up in the problem is we have all this data. What do we do with it? How are we going to categorize it? How are we going to utilize it to our benefit to get to that resiliency part, right? So then we spent a lot of time developing programs and finding a place to store tons of data. And then we had all this data and then we didn't know what to do with it. So, this progress, this is not something that's been going on for 20 years. And, all these things have been thought out and then processed out. So I think part of the resiliency process is how do we as a business use the technology that's here today, the abilities to do things, fly longer distances. How can we leverage that technology to be a smarter business? I always like to use the phrase, what got us here won't keep us here. If you're not changing the way that you're currently doing business to what tools are available to you now, you're probably going to be in a failed business. You'll probably be looking for something else to do, right? So I think that's one of the key things. And then being able to use the technology. We hear the word AI, like there's all these parts and pieces to it. Your leadership will come to you and go, hey, we want you to do this and do it tomorrow. Like there's no magic wand that we just wave and go, okay, here's your answer. So I think that's the other part of it. We need to be able to help our SMEs find a way to be able to train the models the right way, right? And get the right data out of what we're trying to look for. It's great the companies that are out there, but they may not be the SME, right? So then part of that is learning the system, right? So, I know we've had many conversations, Kaitlyn, on trying to figure out what that is, what your need is. So I think we owe that to the industry, to our other partners that we're pairing and partnering with, to be able to educate them on what the actual need is, because what they think we might need might not be what we need, right? So I think that's really where I think a lot of things are missed in this industry right now. The resiliency part of it is doing work smarter, not harder. Being able to do it safely, right? And really being able to leverage that from a cost standpoint, but also to our customers and provide the service, that we and they expect from us as a utility, is being able to deliver that in a costly fashion too, right? We're not raising bills, we're not, going to the well every time like we need to do this. How can we leverage that information that we now have basically at our fingertips from the flying devices or the underwater devices or whatever it is that we're using to collect that data from? So pretty exciting times.
Yeah, and I know you and I have talked a lot about that on all the different competing priorities and how you prioritize. So maybe you could talk about it at Dominion specifically. How have you evaluated where are the quickest wins you can get, lowest hanging fruits? How can you start to see value from, where you're starting to do more inspections, but then also where you are introducing AI, because that can be such a catch-all term as well.
Yeah, and you think when you look at the whole entire system, right, don't try taking everything in one time. Like, take little pieces of things that you did another way initially and go in, you know what, it'd be really cool if we could just go out and get that one piece of information. I think too many utilities want to do everything at one time, and it's really, you kind of get in your own way when you're trying to do that. So like at Dominion, I'll just take renewables, right? We have a large solar fleet in our corporation, and it's like, do I really need to know if the diode is out on a panel, or do I need to know if the whole entire string's out, right? I don't need to get down to that micro level today. I've got the data, I can go back and look at it later, but tell me what strings are out, how much electricity am I using? Those are the real quick wins that don't take a lot of machine learning, but really leverage AI to give you that information very quickly. So I think we kind of spiraled down rabbit holes that we really could stay really on the top of the ground and get a lot of quick information, really easy wins without really drilling way down deep, because I think there's a lot of information that really helped us in our daily activities, from that high level, and then we can start diving down a little bit deeper into the information we've collected.
I think that's such an important part too, is once you collected the data, is how do you continue to see value from that investment that's already been made? Not that it's used, collected once, a report's been drafted, and then it goes and sits somewhere at a desk drawer, but how can you continue to see value from that data for maybe this particular inspection or this particular pain point, but then also over time? And maybe Peter, coming to you, I know that you all have done a great job of thinking about this more programmatically and also really building in the element of data management and ease of access to data. So maybe you could touch on piece on resilience, but then also how you thought about data more broadly.
I'm in a very unique position. We have generation and transmission only, and we had a lovely conversation about distribution today, which is a you problem.
That was quite literally his response. It's a you problem.
But when you're sitting back into your organization, you're looking at your aging assets as they're getting older. They're not tomorrow morning brand new, right? These are 20, 30, some companies have over 100-year-old structures. Getting photos and understanding what it looks like today and a year from now, a month from now, 5 years from now, this is going to be very pivotal for fault detection. What was it for insurance purposes? That data is value. When we're looking at AI, we use Maximo. Our Maximo numbers might not match the tower numbers. We might have in Maximo certain types of insulators that are no longer on this structure. Updating our data on our assets alone can be beneficial. It's not a sexy win. It is not a home run, but it's an actual cost savings. Because how much work when problems do occur, when we turn to Maximo or SAP or whatever you might use, and you're trying to figure out what went wrong, and then everyone's like, wait, those insulators were removed 2 years ago. Well, what insulators did we have on that structure? I don't know. And now you're trying to figure out what was actually on that structure. These are real pain points that everyday employees have. AI, we like to say defect detection, but like that takes a lot of training. Crawl, walk, run. Start working on, is it there? Is that Tower 73/4, space 4, star 4? Does it match the sign, the tag that's on there? That's really what I think is my first problem we're solving at. Well, yeah.
Yeah, that's oftentimes where we actually start with a lot of utilities, is on the data management piece, the updating the historical systems of record like GIS, making sure that asset locations are where they say they are.
The pole's actually where it's supposed to be, not 15 feet off to the right, or 100 feet, or in a river. It's where it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think that's a common conversation, especially on the distribution side. I mean, where things can change rapidly with storms or fires or whatever, may come about from a weather-related incident. But I want to double click on that asset management piece. So we talk a lot in 2026 about moving from reactive maintenance to proactive maintenance. Some of it's something you talked about as well. Did you even touch on that? You know, how do you think about moving from reactive maintenance to more proactive maintenance, and what does that mean for you as you're prioritizing your initiatives?
Our robotics program has the privilege of being in our asset intelligence program. And in there we have our reliability centered maintenance, RCM. Where is that? How many broken glass insulators makes the tower critical? When do you put your hands on said structure? And aligning those programs, those inspections, so it says you can climb the tower, you can fly the tower. We don't care how you capture the data, but this is the data that you need to capture. That is pivotal because, as you know, synthetic data only gets you so far. Getting actual images of your actual components is where you're really going to start seeing that AI tick to the positive. And it's worth the light bulb. It really is.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, to that point as well, before you even get to the defect detection or the anomaly detections or the prioritization, it's actually understanding what's the inventory you have deployed in the fields, and then starting to do, you know, the tracking over time of those assets to see how they're performing in more critical areas. BBTF, coming to you, how are you thinking about moving from, you know, reactive maintenance to more proactive maintenance, and what role does your program play in that for different business units?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, like Peter said, you gotta start somewhere, right? And getting those basic as-built maps. If you worked in that field before, you know that when you see on the plans may not be what's actually there. So until you get the as-built and understand what's there at the site, so I think that's another effort. Really, when you think of AI, you're like, you know, let's get away from the problem side of it, but let's identify what is actually there or is supposed to be there. And then when those things start to fail and understand where they are, then we can start really diving down deep into like, okay, well, we got this combiner box that's out here. We got 70,000 of these on, you know, 20 sites across our footprint. Like, we know we have an issue or a potential issue here. How many other places could we have potentially had that issue, right? So we can start really monitoring that proactive part of it, like, or we got an issue with a panel or another component on our lines, is like, we need to start monitoring this because it could be a potential issue, right? So we've gone down to this, you know, okay, maybe it is, maybe it's not, but then I think using AI to give us those numbers, the feedback, right? Like, the possibility ratio is this. I think from a funding standpoint, we kind of see this a little bit now too, is you go out and you identify a bunch of things. How do you fix it? How do you pay for it? Because now all of a sudden you have now found a lot of things that you didn't know existed before. So it's kind of this balance. And then there's also, in the regulated utility, if you find it, are you responsible for fixing it? So do you want to go find all the things that could be wrong? So there's a balance there, right? So I think, you know, for us is like, we're being proactive. How do we become reactive? Because there is a financial indication there, potentially, right? So I think really it's kind of the balance of what we're looking at. Again, don't do everything at one time, but then really being able to put that into the workflow system, whether it's SAP or whatever you're using to put it in the workflow. And again, just really understand some really basic guidelines. You know, when you're planning a budget, it's really critical to be able to have that information to plan for the future years on replacement cost or potential replacement cost. So, I mean, it's kind of how we're looking at that.
And that's an active conversation that I think a lot of utilities are having today, is that same thing. We're moving to starting to collect a lot more data, a lot more frequent data. How are we thinking about resolving all of the anomalies that we find in a timely fashion, understanding that there is a risk component once you've also identified some of those defects? Recognizing that it's a very in medias res conversations, how are you navigating that with your business units, with your leadership? What's that conversation looking like today?
I think shocking. You know, when you really start, like, just really peeling the onion back, right? You start looking at all the different things. We also find a lot of positive things too, right? So it's not all like, oh, everything's a problem. You know, you're seeing it from a different lens that we've never seen before. Unless you're actually the company that's out there putting up the infrastructure, you're really close to it. If you're not, you go, okay, that's a pole, that's a transmission tower, whatever, right? Like, until you really can actually see it from a different lens, it really starts going, okay, well, if we had done this or we can do this, I think you're really starting to really look at that infrastructure in a different way. And I think really, anything, from 100 feet in the air looks a lot different than it does on the ground. So I think really, I think from the aspect of, like a solar field, it's 1,000 acres, how much of that do you actually see if you just actually look at it? You're only seeing a little teeny piece of it. But if you do an orthomosaic or an as-built and you're actually looking at the whole entire field, you're like, wow, like those trackers are off. There's things that just stand out very clearly to you very immediately without really having to do a lot of work.
Sure. Yeah. And Patrick, I'm sure that's something that you can identify with moving from a 5-year cycle to a year-over-year cycle. Maybe talk about what that experience has been like and some of the insights you've uncovered as you're starting to collect a lot more data.
Yeah, well, so the concern that y'all talked about, right? Identifying problems, and then now you have to do something about it. I'll tell you exactly what I tell my leadership team, that if they truly believe that ignorance is a defense, there might be a mistake. So we're in a better state of knowing exactly where we have concerns rather than just ignore them and failure happens. We have to get ahead of that. We have to be able to measure it. We have to understand the risk profile. And then we have to, rather than just leap off to fix, we have to bake it into our overall strategy plan of work execution. So what we're doing is we're taking all of those defects and we're tracking against all work. There is a lot of work happening in Texas right now due to all the low growth and everything. So we're looking at it and we're trying to measure criticality and the risk profile. And if we have a high risk or we have an outstanding job, and it could just naturally be a maintenance job that was going to reconduct, or it could be a customer job that would impact that. If we could influence that work scheduling, we can handle that risk, dissolve it, and then be more targeted in areas that we had no outstanding work, right? So it's really a balancing, but it first starts with knowing where problems are and the criticality, and really trying to put a program around it. Wrapping a program, not running each as an individual tool. That's why we have data science, we have reliability engineering, we have analysts, we have UAS, and all of that is sitting in our Mission Intelligence Center. So we have a center dedicated to processing and really driving operational success for AEP Texas. It's the best center out there, so just have
I touched on that, but
it's a big cable.
we've time your touch on the operations centers.
We'll talk high for operations center later. But what I really want to piggyback on, okay, it's broken, you took a picture of it. Is it a priority? One of the problems I'm liking that we're solving at New York Power Authority is, what is priority 1? What is priority 2? What is priority 3? Redefining it. What it was back in the day does not mean it applies now, okay? Assets change, asset classes change. Certain lines are more important to your infrastructure than other lines. So clearing this definition of this problem used to be big because you needed a crew and to this, that, and the other. Now you know exactly what's wrong. You're not trying to figure out, having someone climb and figure out what's wrong with it. You got a picture. You got the components. It's an easier rollout to fix. It's kind of cool. But it's a lot of work. You're right. The problem is there. All of our colleagues have that same problem.
I think it's touching on an important piece too, and that actually ties back to resilience, is the location of the anomaly is also highly important as well as you're thinking about where that falls on the prioritization list. So, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, please.
But the proactive, actually, there's a financial benefit for utility because in a reactive state, it's a high O&M expense, right? And it always seems to happen in the middle of the night. I don't know about y'all, but it was like every problem happens in the middle of the next list. But we can actually get out in front of that customer. We can say, hey, we need to do this work. The financials, we can minimize them, right? Because you're going to pay a different cost to responding. It's slower, the outage is delayed. You're going to have minutes when it's a reactive because you got to find the problem, and then you got to get the right resources out there. That takes a lot more time than targeting and understanding the criticality, right, to your point, and balancing. Because in an area where you might have a failure, right, and then you got another area and they will say they're equal in criticality. This area, to Peter's point, and let's say it's less important, but there is CMI avoidance, there's risk, there's fire, there's other factors that could be baked in. So when you're trying to balance a plant and you're looking at risk, all of those factors have to go in to say directionally, this is what I have to do first, second, third, and you have a project plan that you can execute on. And then it's defendable. Why did you do this? Because every factor pointed, I needed to do this before this. But it's kind of like predicting the next hole that will fall. Good luck. Because if y'all could do that, they gamble. I'm at the casino down the hall. I'll place my bets with you. Because whatever you do, there's still going to be something's going to happen, right? It's just knowing that you're taking the steps forward and using data and science and, you know, and standing there saying, this is the best I can do. And then finding any data gaps where you can shore up even the models by gathering a little extra piece of information over here can help improve. So it's exciting times, to be honest with you, because we're getting to chart where I think the evolution, where people look back and say, man, they set us up for success way back here, you know, and they're talking about what's happening 50 years from now.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point that actually goes back to even TF's point as well about you're uncovering all of these different, you know, defects, anomalies, maybe those types of things, but you're able to then prioritize how you can go out and fix them in a way that can have the greatest impact. So I want to kind of shift or double click on that a little bit. As you're thinking about outages, I mean, so much of it is how can you prevent an outage in the world that we are in today where reliability is such an important part of the conversation. You know, how are you building that into your business case where you're thinking about preventing outages, outage risk mitigation? But how are you having that conversation? How are you thinking about the role that you can tie into your program?
Me?
I'll start with you.
Yeah, so we actually are using multiple AI systems from the vegetation, being able to scan the whole system. We're looking to see what we'll do for LiDAR, but I'm not, you know, I can't cover my footprint that big, so we're doing some satellite-based. So I really got to understand the vegetation encroachment problem. I need to understand the current state of our system. I need to understand what's underneath our lines, what we call our field scape. If I do drop the line, what happens? And we're really prioritizing in the effort of looking, and I mean, I got to pick a choice, right? So I have all these risk profiles and then the CMI avoidance. You know, if I go do this, it's worth this much. And this is how I can protect my community. So it might mean a wildfire over here, but I don't have wildfire over here. So it's just dynamically shifting the time of use and everything. But we're taking all the components we know, funneling everything in, drawing clear insights. And I don't know if that answers your question, but it's exciting for me because I call it like discovered. Like, what do I think I'm gonna find, and what did I actually find at the end of the day? And I'm gonna be like, man, that's a little nugget I didn't even have a clue was there, because I never look at the data that way. So
Sure, that was really helpful. And then maybe TF, how are you thinking about the way that AI-enabled workflows are playing a role in your outage prevention strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the force multiplier, right? You're going out, you're collecting a lot of data. How do you look at it in a reasonable sense? How do you really interpolate what you're seeing against what that could be? So let's just use an example. A storm rolls through the Tidewater area in Virginia. You know, you have both distribution and transmission affected, right? How are you going, you know, obviously there's a tier of criticality, right? You want to get the transmission on, then you want to get the distribution because it all is feeding everything, right? How do you look at that in the totality of the circumstance? Two different business units competing for the same thing, but there is a multitask part of that. So if you're using the AI ability to be able to look at that area, we never can focus on the right area. We pre-deploy people for storms, that's usually in the wrong place, right? How do you regroup and then be able to deploy into those areas? And using the models that you already have built to be able to do that layer, so it's really important, like you talked about before, is being able to compare apples to apples. Like our designers can look at those and go, that's supposed to be there, it's not there. We need to get this asset there. So you're able to get the equipment to repair that infrastructure when it goes down and know you have enough of it to do that. Like a prime example is we were predicted a very big ice storm in Virginia. If we had got the ice that was predicted and you start doing pole loading and trying to understand how much weight could be actually hanging off those spans, do you have enough poles to be able to replace them if we do get that ice? So we're able immediately to use the AI models, be able to look at that and actually do some interpretation of the data, be able we don't have what we need and we need to ship those supplies from the the western end to the eastern end, and we can be able to accomplish that task. So I think really just getting you the supply chain is super important. If you don't have the things, you can't fix them, but getting them in the right spot. So I think that's a really great use of the AI tool, knowing what you had before, what you're going to need potentially, and being able to use the AI models to be able to predict that.
Yeah, and I definitely want to circle back to that. We start to talk about workflow and how these insights then feed into your broader workflow. But even before we do that, Peter, on your side of things, I know we've talked a lot about safety and worker safety. How are AI-enabled workflows helping you as you're thinking about worker safety more broadly?
When we turn around and near Power Authority SPIC, right? We're from Niagara Falls to St. Lawrence River all the way down into Westchester. And everyday employees are on the right-of-ways. These are right-of-ways that crumble away with high rains, vehicles get rolled, linemen fall and hit the safety line. If you want to put your folks in danger to the point where they can get up and close and see if that bolt is broken, the way they used to do it is climb off and see if that bolt's broken, right? Now with our shot list that we have developed and doing zoomed in, zoomed out, taking our interns from the summer and taking our comprehensive inspections from the helicopters and training the models, these things can be done further back. So they can stay on 100 feet away from the tower, take a bunch of pictures, and then have the AI say, hey, you need to look at this one twice, or keep going. That alone is saving. You're not saving dollars and cents, but they're still going to spend that 15 minutes on something more pressing. Does that make sense? Yeah, they're less dangerous in that environment. So
Sure, no, absolutely, and I think that's oftentimes a conversation we're having with a lot of field crews and linemen is how do you use these types of tools to make your jobs safer? It's not to replace the human, it's not to take the human out of the equation, but it's how can we make them safer and more effective at doing their job in a scalable way, especially at a time where labor shortages are so critical.
the way when they're climbing and they're touching the tower, my favorite thing is to compare the legacy method versus the new method, okay? Climbing a tower and physically looking for a problem, they're thinking about 1,000 different things for alignment. Is my harness height? Is the fall gear set up correctly? Are my lines gonna short out the lines? They're worried about 1,000 things. And then when they're climbing, they're trying to touch every component. Put that into perspective. Now we're saying, don't worry about climbing, but you now know you need to replace several cotter pins, some glass insulators. Now you're climbing less, you're climbing for a purpose, and you're climbing to a location you know is bad. That ease of mind is better for our staff. And that alone is valuable.
And that goes back to the point earlier as well about, we've now identified so many different defects that we actually need to resolve and repair. So that also can help resolve some of those challenges as well. So now's the opportunity I want to transition and talk about data and workflow. I know this is a big topic of conversation, but I wanted to circle back on the remote operation centers. I was hoping that each of you could talk a bit about the remote operation centers that you're building. How are you constructing those? How are you resourcing them? What are the priorities for you this year as you're rolling this out?
I'm gonna go last because we'll save the best for last.
Bologna.
Do you want to kick us off?
So my remote operations center is actually quite cool. You guys ready for this? Kind of. It's on 2 cell phones. I can do my job from here, controlling, monitoring our whole fleet, and get KPIs and everything from my phones. Now, I don't need a compression chair, okay? But I can be on a beach.
Decompression chair.
Decompression chair. I can be on a beach in Hawaii, decompressing with a martini, okay?
hard to follow.
See up, are you right?
Yeah, so we have set up our DROC, our Drury Road Operations Center at the Richmond International Airport, where we operate our remote operations, PV loss operations on our footprint, where we have operators that are there that can operate and do our remote operations. With that said, is the ability now, again, like I said, 5 years ago, we weren't having this discussion. Like, we were struggling at being able to go further down the line, right? You know, that time has come, and that paradigm is shifting. Who knows what, 108 will bring in the new year. But when you start looking at the ability to have eyes on, being able to have that real live situational awareness, it really, for us, is like storm response, right? When you're able to have executive leadership look at what's going on in the field, understand what the crews are facing, the difficulties they're facing, and the ability to do a lot of what took a lot of time in treacherous weather, right? Whether it's 2 feet of snow and an individual's walking down a right of way, when you're talking about the safety part of it, where we're able to use that technology and fly down that line very quickly, and being able to say, there's an issue, there's not an issue, and then move to the next asset, right? So time savings, safety issues, right? And being able to do it. We're not out of 100-degree weather. We don't have a compression chair in our DROC. We refer to his as the Pebble because he's got his 2 phones there, and yours is the mic, right? But again, the little Pebble. But yeah, I think the time that we were starting to stand these elements up of our operation was something we weren't doing 5 years ago. So I think, it really comes to important play there. We're really doing the force multiplier medium. We'll really get out there and see that infrastructure. I think you all have a big dock operation as well. But yeah, I think that, having that ability and being able to get that information fed a lot of time, change detection, all those things really start playing into, we weren't having this conversation before.
No.
So.
And
Well, you got to talk about the mic.
Well, honestly, we're not talking about the mic.
no, I think that it's interesting. You're double clicking on like an important point there with Part 108, with quantum many, with so many new autonomous operations launching. The ability to think about what comes afterwards, what comes downstream is just so important to the success of that program overall. So Patrick, over to you. Do you want to talk about the mic and what the acronym stands for?
Not a bubble. Oh, the acronym is the Mission Intelligence Center. So really what its focus is really coming together to your reliability. How do I go from reactive to proactive? Where we did historically, we did document what failed, when it failed. We just, had a piece of data saying this was the cause and this is the hours it was at. We didn't really have any key insights to understand what really happened. So what we're trying to do is, like we said, move to an annual inspection program. When we do have an outage, we're collected exactly where it happened, looking for any key signals of could we have identified this, pre-fail. What was the current, wind conditions? What, all the environmental stuff. What was up? We learned a key factor, the orientation of our line during certain wind speeds resulted in failure versus if it was oriented a different way with the same condition, it would, no problem. That was an eye-opening for me, orientation of line when the impact there. So the center really is about driving in and understanding and being the single source of truth for our operations team of knowing what to be focused on, where to move resources, what should we be concerned about, and it's the nervous system of how we're shifting the utility. It's not the old brute force, wait for it to fail mindset. It's really about driving efficiency and effectiveness in our response for our customers. And it's, I'm excited. And yes, I'm very demanding. So, I do have decompression chairs. So what that really is 2 really, really nice massage chairs. So I'm pretty sure y'all at some point in the time said, man, I need a massage. I'm super stressed out. So I have a room that they can peel off and they can go collect themselves, take a moment, like some people take a walk. 𝗧𝗿𝗶𝗶𝗀𝗃𝗃 and come back to work and get their asses back, and moving, because what we're trying to do is really drive us forward, and a game chair is a very small gesture, and it's actually very, you'd be surprised the impact it would make for mental wellness and everything. So they laugh. I'm trying to take care of my team, but I'm also going to push them to the brink at the same time. So it's a balancing.
Sit back and to reflect on what we're doing.
Yeah.
And what our folks are doing day in, day out, from remote operations, remote sensing, and the AI and the partnerships that we have developed. 10 years ago, this wasn't even on the horizon. Okay, 5 years ago, this was something we were striving for. Today, some of us have 4-1 operations, and it's going to expand. While linear inspections are coming, AI and robotics are hand in hand. The longer it takes for people to start exploring it, getting your governance in place, your SOPs, which I think we've spent hundreds of hours, each of us, developing from all of our organizations, is one day longer you are until you're actually doing what we're doing here. That makes sense.
Go back to the chairs real quick. Let's be honest, right? Like air traffic control and everything, it's super stressful. I mean, they're operating aircrafts. Yes, they're autonomous, but when there's a failure, there's a lot of responsibility, right? So I think you got to be mindful that the teams are really, what they're doing is critical and everything. And so regardless of what you do for them, make sure that you allow them to have a moment for themselves.
Well, I can hear a few, me and TF for both putting in for decompression chairs for our offices, okay?
Just so the Costco.
I mean, it is stressful, right? So, I'm sure every last person on here is pushing their teams to be the very best, setting goals. So, it's exciting times, but it's also stressful times to sit up.
Well, it is. I mean, I think we're in the middle of so many of these bigger conversations. To your point, there's so much changing so quickly, and how can you adapt to be nimble and mold on the fly? And then also, how can you get your teams behind that as well to make sure that we're driving, for that continuous growth? I want to take a step back and ask, as you're looking to implement many of these systems, we talk about workflow, we talk about we're doing so much, some new and exciting things with all this data collection, but oftentimes the systems that these insights are feeding into are large legacy platforms that have been in place for quite some time. We also talk about the challenges of data siloing and how that can quickly become a challenge for the organization. So what have been some of the lessons that you've learned as you've started to implement and integrate your work and some of your data into some of these legacy systems? NUP, I'll start with you.
New York Power Authority actually has linemen using AI, and they're starting to spot problems and then seeing if other areas are going to see the same problems to notify supervision. Okay, this is something that is pivotal. Okay, we all want to sit here and talk about asset performance is going to be key, asset management, but that's 12 people at most in most of our organizations. Your linemen, your frontline supervisors, your planners, these are hundreds of individuals, okay? So when we're looking at silos, it's robotics team flies and takes a picture of a tower and never shares a transmission. What does a robotics or drone pilot actually know about a tower? What do they know about a dam? Absolutely nothing. You put it into the hands of the everyday employee to make the best decision for their jobs. You want someone to go in and say, Tower 73/4, here's every photo of 73/4. Dam Vischer Ferry B, here are all the photos of this day. You want to empower them. Getting the data to do their job is the bare minimum.
Yeah, how about you, Tia?
I think the other thing too, when you look at these systems, these legacy systems, if you're working with a legacy system, we're in a new age. those legacy systems also, you have to kind of reevaluate what you're looking. Is that the cork that's in the dam? Like, if we need to look at other means in order to get and ingest that data or get that data back out, I think it's super important that we're kind of focused on one area, but there's a bigger picture that we really need to really dive down into how we're doing business today, whether it's SAP or whether it's some other, some other process that we're utilizing, is to bring them along for the ride, because they have a product that we're utilizing, but is it the right product to do what we need to do for the future? And I think a lot of us get kind of bound up and we only carry it to a certain point, and then there's this dam that doesn't allow us to go any further. So I think we owe it to our business, our business partners, to start looking at some of those other possibilities that are out there. Maybe we've used after the last 20 years. Again, what got us here won't keep us here. If we're continuing to do business the way we used to do it, then shame on us. So we really need to explore some of those other things that are out there, that are on the horizon, or a company that's really willing to work with us. Super important.
Yeah, I think there's so many unique workflows that being able to make sure the insights are feeding into those programs. So to your point, that the right folks are able to make data-driven decisions is where we really see the gains start to compound over time. Patrick, did you have anything you wanted to add on that front?
Oh yeah, so what we've done, and we're still working on it, is really just get those teams involved up front, right? Trying to help them understand not to put a square peg in a round hole. So don't just try to make the shoe fit. What do we need to do to allow ourselves to connect as evolution is happening? Because we do have legacy systems, and it's only a matter of time before we sunset them and we have to go to a new system. So we're trying to have them step back, figure out how to build the system onto the side. We'll connect to the old legacy where it makes sense, or we'll put in a user interface in until we have another system to send it to. So we're trying to evolve right now, but I need them to be mindful to set ourselves up for success for the long term and not just try to make it work, because that's the wrong approach, and we're guilty of making that approach all the time. It's just make it after, and then it takes more engineering time to peel it all back and reconnect it. So build a foundation for scale, and then we'll deal with the challenges as they unfold.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point as we're wrapping up here as well. I mean, it's a constant battle between how do you get the quick win and get the insights and the information you need today, but also set yourself up for the long-term scalability of the program in the fastest way possible. So thank you so much for sharing. As we're wrapping up there, I just want to do a quick lightning round. Patrick, I'll start with you, and then we'll move the way down this way. But as we're in 2026, what is the biggest challenge that you and your team are working through this year? And then also, what's your biggest success then at this year's date?
My biggest challenge is trying to educate those around me of the level of complexity, and to be semi-patient, right? Everything doesn't have to be yesterday. I think that's my biggest challenge, understanding really the amount of work and complexity in these programs, trying to stand them up from the ground up. The biggest success is finding the right partners to pair up with. There's a lot of people out there selling a lot of dreams. It's important to make sure you vet them properly, and just make sure if you're going to go down, you're going to go down together, right? So make sure you find the right teams and the right people, and be open and honest of what you're trying to do, and work with those who are passionate about how you're trying to pull your program up. So, and then also have an opportunity to connect with other peer utilities trying to solve the same problems is a huge success, at least for me, because they already been down the road a few times.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, how about you?
If it ain't broke, we'll fix it, right? So yeah, I think for, one of the challenges is, right, what are ways to get ready to come out, right? Like how are we going to operate, whether it's 2209, critical infrastructure, and then those proposals we're making, like those are things that go down a regulatory path, right, that we need to follow and be able to adhere to, figuring out how we're going to flex there, right? So I think that's exciting, but also there's how are we going to operate in that environment, right? Because we don't know what that actually is going to be. I think the other part for us is looking forward, some of the challenges, your customers expect to have the lights on when they come home and flip the light switch, right? What do you do, as we've seen in what's happening in Ukraine, is drone detection and mitigation as well. So I think it's another challenge for us in the utility is like, how do we protect that infrastructure from the air? We got nice fences and gates, guards, and guns, but what are we doing to protect the infrastructure, right? So I think those are things that are challenges to come, and there's not a clear answer to what those systems would be, but you really have to start thinking that way when you look at protecting what we do for the customers we serve.
Awesome, thanks. Ida?
So our biggest success, and that's where I'm going to start right off the bat, is having 4-to-1 operations, 4 drones, 1 pilot. That's when we're going to start seeing some scale. That's where we really want to let our hands go and trust what we've built. Challenges is the NPRMs 108, because it's a lot of uncertainty. For us to be considered as aerial surveying as of today and not civil interests, worried about priorities with package delivery and operations from 2209 is going to be a gaping headache, I think, for us until July 4th.
Like, for God's sakes, it's due on July 4th. Like you think the FAA could be a little nicer to us?
They're here, we go talk to them.
No, that'd be perfect. I got insights from Jennifer. Don't worry about that. We'll talk about that offline.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing some amazing insights. It's really exciting to hear just how far your programs have come and all the successes. So thanks for the opportunity. We'll be here out there for any questions. And then we're hosting a happy hour of Us Solutions is tonight at the Book Tower. So for anyone who wants to come, definitely let us know. You can connect with some of us there. But thanks everyone for the time.